How's it going, Raiders? My name is Ryan. This is TRC episode 15. Do you guys like raiding? Do you guys want to raid in BfA? Are you concerned about any of the changes or curious about them coming our way in the next expansion? Or do you just in general want to talk about, maybe Antorus raiding? Well, good news. Today's episode, we have a guest coming on our show, and we will be talking about all of the changes and what we think that will do for raiding in Battle for Azeroth, as well as taking a look at each of the fights in Antorus with our guests. So with that being said, tanks, everyone's ready. Pull timer on you.
The heroes have made it to the glorious finale.
All right, here we go, guys. Set up your chairs, focus up. Let's do this.
All right, guys, get buffed up.
Okay, so we want to soak the annihilations.
Get your shit together.
Then we want to target the annihilator.
Put the big girl panties on.
Move back to avoid damage from eradication.
I think I've disconnected.
Then we target the decimator.
Can we pull already?
Then we target boss.
I hope you can swim in molten lava.
Let's kill this dragon.
Oh man, that intro gets me every freaking time. I love it. Tom did great work. Speaking of Tom, joining me today is Marty from his closet, as well as Michael, both of them from the Blue Recluse. Marty is my co-host, and Michael is our guest for today. How are you guys?
Pretty good.
The closet is cozy.
Well, I thought for a minute there we were going to escape your echoing, and then you had two mics going at once, and your echoing is back, and now we're good to go. So I think the closet was a good choice now that we've worked all the kinks out.
Yeah.
So like I said earlier, guys, my name is Ryan. This is the TRC for anybody first time joining us today. We are a show that specifically deals with the raiding scene in the world of Warcraft for all you Azerothians out there. We specifically talk about anything and everything from LFR all the way up to Mythic. Marty and I both are Mythic Raiders, and Michael has recently joined the raid scene. Have you not, Michael?
That is correct. It's been an adventure, to say the least.
Yeah, well, that's cool. I'm excited to pick your brain here today. Marty and I, are coming from the same page of a very similar book, just from different sides of the pond. But, you are coming from a more casual side of things comparatively, and typically hang out in a lower difficulty, there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of our show, is we cover all the difficulties, but it'll be interesting to kind of pick your brain and see what you think of everything, especially when we're talking the changes to come and what we think that'll do for the raiding scene as we know it. So it'll definitely be a good discussion, I think. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump right into it. And real quick, round table. Michael, what have you been up to in game lately, my friend?
Not too much. I've had a busy work schedule, but when I do get in the game, mainly Mythic Plus, maybe doing normal raids here and there with the guild. Sunday, we usually have our alt raids, which for me is still my main raid since I don't have an alt. So just jumping in there, trying to get as much experience as I can. I don't necessarily jump in there for the loot at the moment. It's nice to get it, but I jump in there to practice and get better and learn the fights and learn my rotations even more. So mainly Mythic Plus. I love doing Mythic Plus, but also getting in a few raids in LFR and normal. That's pretty much all I've been up to in game.
How are you liking the Mythic Plus scene? I know that's kind of been a recent endeavor of yours as well.
I absolutely love it. I feel like I do a lot better in the Mythic Plus than I do the raids, just because I'm stressing out throughout the raid. I constantly hear all the guildies just saying, like, oh, it's normal, we're gonna steamroll it. Meanwhile, my hands are sweating. I can't chat because I'm stressing out trying to make sure I dodge swirlies while also dodging this and then moving to the moon and then the star and then back to the square. And I'm just like, oh my god, what's going on? But it's fine. I got it.
It's funny you say that, because for anybody who may not have noticed already in the intro, the person who is meticulously, periodically going over every single mechanic from the Garathi fight, that is our friend Michael over here. So
the easiest fight, and I'm just like, okay, we need to do this, and this, correct? And then one more time,
It
tell me just to make
reminds me
sure.
a little bit about like Leroy Jenkins, right, where they're going through tactics as well. That's how I imagine Michael, and all of a sudden he's just like, Michael, shot, wow.
Well, when I was working with Tom designing the intro, and I kind of wanted, all of my close friends and podcasters and people I kind of hang out with in the community to have their own respective part inside the intro or the outro. I kind of want to design their voice lines to kind of suit their personality, as much as possible. And Michael, I was talking to Tom, I'm like, every time I've run a Mythic Plus dungeon with Michael or talked to this, the rating and that kind of stuff for his character, he's always been so very detail oriented and meticulous. And like he was saying, trying to improve and get everything down and pay, not forget any little detail that might be prudent, and so I was like, okay, we got to have him in there, like, literally just regurgitating all of the different mechanics before the whole timer hits 0, and we inevitably pull the boss.
Initially, I was just gonna yell, "Many whelps left side."
See,
I decided to go a different route.
See, that's why I play a healer, because as a healer, you don't really have to pay too much attention to all the tactics. You'll most of the time you just make sure that everybody is alive, and then that's your job. And obviously, you still need to move around to the points if there is tactics like that. But besides that, you're just healing, and you don't really care too much about what the DPS is doing or what the tanks are doing.
Oh, your line is perfect. The impatient, grumpy healer.
Yeah.
Can we pull the boss already? Can you guys stop standing in fire already? Quit making me heal and do things.
Don't stand in fire. God damn it, stupid DPS.
So, well, now that we've got you on the mic, Marty, what have you been up to lately?
Oh, I have been playing World of Warcraft. It's been an interesting week because the pre-order hit, and if you haven't noticed already, you can play all the new allied races, and I have unlocked all 4 of them. Yes, also on the Horde side.
Yeah, that's cool. I too have done that. I used my 110 boost on a Horde character on a different server, and did all that. So they're pretty cool. I don't normally like space goats,
No,
but the Lightforged Draenei are really cool looking in my opinion, and most of the people that know me really well are gonna like point the finger at me, because I've been vehemently against space goats since day one of their creation.
Me too. And I was like, what the hell? This character looks cool and it plays cool, and I don't really know, is there really that much of a difference? Is it just because it's new and shiny?
Right. So I especially the paladin tank Lightforged Draenei, to me, like, just thematically is so enticing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, mine is a paladin tank as well.
So yeah, now last time we spoke, you were kind of both your group and you specifically were kind of in their own respective ways kind of getting back into the raid scene.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of had a little bit of slow start this tier. Are you guys kind of back full swing now, getting some more bosses down? What's going on there?
We got a new boss down, and
So you're 3 of 11 or 4
3
of
of
11?
11 now, and we.
Okay. Now, which boss did you go first?
Obviously we went for the first one. Is not really. It's the same one, right?
Yeah, I guess I mean, like, of the third, the fourth, and the fifth boss, did you go Eonart, Portal Keeper, or High Command for your third boss?
For the third one, we are going Portal Keeper. Is the one? Yeah.
So what bosses do you have down already?
We have a High Command. High Command is the one is the pot, right? I'm a little bit. I'm so bad with names. I should really be better with names when I'm on a podcast about rating. I'm sorry, but the High Command we downed that this week for the first time. So now we're moving on to Portal Keeper, and I think our best try with Portal Keeper was like 20-something% or something, almost lower. I can't remember.
Okay.
It was we definitely felt like next week we'll probably have it.
You're gonna pass my where I'm at very quickly. You guys seem to be on a quicker pace than.
Yeah, I also think that we're ridiculously good geared, most of us. It's just because we've been, once again, it's a theme, this expansion. We've been unlucky with people because we had 5 people quitting on us within a week, the same week. So we had to all of a sudden start recruiting up again and meet new people and gear them up. And now we're hopefully back. Fingers crossed.
Sure. Well, I don't even think I've told Marty or Michael this piece of news. But as I mentioned last week, or maybe can't remember if I mentioned this specific piece of information, but I'm currently 4 of 11 working on the 5th boss. My group had both High Command and ENR down, and we're working on Portal Keeper, and I think our best attempt was 50 percentile. We only had a handful of pulls on him. We didn't really get a full night in on him. But between Tuesday, which we inevitably, like all the other US servers, I don't know if the EU servers dealt with it as much, but we dealt with all the different server issues coming with the patch and the BfA release.
Yeah,
it was a nightmare.
I can imagine, because I was sitting watching the what's it called, the Q&A, and at the same time the pre-order dropped, and yeah, we were actually talking, you and I as well, and Dusty from the Blue, not from the Blue Recluse, from the other podcast. Jesus Christ, I'm mixing up names today. From the Blizzard Umbrella, Dusty from the Blizzard Umbrella. We were sitting on Discord just talking and trying to pre-order, and even that was a hell to just get through and actually give Blizzard more money.
Yeah. Yeah, so I finally, the funny story about that is of Marty, Dusty, and myself, I was the first one to actually get to the checkout screen, and mine screwed up. So they actually got their orders done before I did. I ended up getting mine later that evening.
Well, the same thing happened to me, though. The same thing happened, that I got to the payment screen, and it wouldn't go through, and that's when I went to
right.
I went back through my my account, and for some odd reason, I could get that way straight to the payment. But when we tried to replicate it with you, Ryan, then we couldn't do it. So I don't know if I was just lucky, if it was a glitch or whatever it was. But I managed to get through, and was more than happy that I could start playing my Void Elf.
Well, I think it was a glitch. I later on when I got home, because I was actually up on campus chatting with Marty and Dusty during the Q&A, and I stuck around for about an hour hoping my transaction and stuff would go through. When I got home, I think it was just a glitch on their end, and they had me saved as my checkout process, because I got home, opened it up, and fired up the checkout or the page, and it automatically took me to checkout and finalize my transaction. So I had it done within 3 seconds of opening my computer once I got home. So it was, I don't know, that whole period. I mean, at one point I was like 2 million something person in line to check out. It just seemed like their servers were getting bombarded. But real quick, so we can jump into things, just to kind of finish what I was starting to say is, my group was 411. We were working on 511, and this Tuesday we dealt with the issues, and we actually called it quits on Fellhounds, because our main tank actually moved and didn't take his computer with him, and the old laptop he had there crapped out on him, and we were just dealing with so many issues. We called it quits. But inevitably, like any other expansion, we've had a lot of people who were just either kind of checked out, ready to be done, either via just boredom of the game. Their excitement lies more towards the BfA stuff rather than the current content, or even just after year and a half, 2 years of the same people, frictions, and just being tired of spending so much time with certain people, is guilds tend to can succumb to falling apart. And inevitably that's what my guild happened on Thursday. The raid leader announced the guild was going to be done raiding, and people are free to do what they will. So I went ahead and spoke with another raid group that actually some of my old raiders, when I was raid leading the previous guild, had gone to. And so me and a few of the others are going to go trial over there and hopefully jump back into Mythic raiding with that group on Tuesday.
Oh man, you're so unlucky with raiding this expansion.
So I mean, it is what it is. I'm determined to kill Mythic Argus before BfA drops. So I'm going to keep sticking to it and just keep putting in applications and doing what I need to stay in the raid scene. I don't know. It's in my mind. I have yet to clear a final boss during current tier of Mythic this expansion. But that's what I'm going to do with this one. I'm going to finish the expansion strong and roll into BfA and decide from there. So I've been doing Mythic pluses and kind of dealing with the whole guild thing. But other than that, just been playing some allied races and stuff like that. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. Our first segment today, we're going to talk with what knowledge we do know currently with BfA changes, how we think, the three of us from our respective mindsets towards raiding, how we think that's going to change the raid scene. Like I said, with what we do know currently. And so the first bullet point I have here is some of these new class racials. Some of them seem pretty mundane and just your typical class racial you would see with anybody else. And then there's one in particular that seems a bit OP. And I actually, now that I'm looking at it, I don't have this one written down. But I was going to hopefully maybe pick the brains of these two here and see what they think. Just at face value, what do you guys think about these new class racials?
Silence. We're both in awe.
Right.
I don't know. I think that they're all fairly good, to be honest. Considering that sometimes I find racials are just like plain weird or stupid or not really useful. Then I actually think that with these 4 new races that they introduced, actually all of them have something interesting in the new toolkit.
What about you, Mikey? You got a chance to look at them?
Yeah, I like the High Mountain one specifically just because it kind of feels like that class fantasy a bit more. For me at least, like the Bull Rush, it charges forward and knocks them down. It's just like one of those things that I thought you could do as a Tauren. Like you're this big rampaging cow, so you should be able to actually do something like that in the game. So as a newer raider, like I don't really look at it and see like how is this going to affect my gameplay. I'm just like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The one thing though, and you actually didn't add it to this list. I don't know if are we going through all 4 of them like one by one, or what's the plan?
Well, I was just gonna kind of, like I said, ask you guys what you think at face value, and then I was gonna go through, and this is probably a good time to bring this up. Since we haven't had a lot of class racials change up a raid scene or something in the game drastically in quite a while, outside of we saw a lot of guilds race changing to goblins with whatever classes could switch to goblins on the horde side because of goblin jump on kill Jaden. That it kind of trivialized some of the mechanics and made the fight easier, and so a lot of especially mythic race guilds were going goblins for rocket jump, and then in the mythic plus scene you see a lot of blood elves because of arcane torrent. Be it, silencing or resources or whatever. You've seen a lot of the high-end Mythic Pluses groups running Blood Elves for that. And they actually talked about that in the Q&A recently about how they were going to look at stuff like that because, that effectively pigeonholes people into specific classes and stuff like that, and they're trying to avoid that specific situation. And so that was kind of where I was trying to hope to approach this particular part of the discussion was, do we think any of these particular racials, like the 5% damage one, I think, which is what Void Elves get, right, on top of their Spatial Rift, or is that Nightborn? I don't remember which one it is, but one of them.
I don't remember which one it is either, but I know that the High Mountain, all Druid or Warrior tanks should probably go High Mountain Torn now, right? Because, well, Bulwark is fun, but it's not really the ability that I'm thinking about here, because they also have 2 other passive racials, which is, one of them is reduced damage taken and the other one is versatility, and both of those combined gives extra damage, reduced damage taken, right? So seems like if you're really serious, that's where you want to go, right?
Well, so I'm like, when I'm looking at High Mountain, I'm also looking at Bull Rush, right? So if you're a Worgen Druid currently, with all your different racials and class talents and whatnot, you can effectively, it's just one more mobility cooldown you can add to your tricks, your toolkit. And so it'll be interesting to me to see how kind of what uniqueness players are able to figure out and start utilizing some of these classes, and what changes we'll see once people start to really hone in on what they can do with these different class racials and whatnot. Like the 5% damage one, I was talking with some of the people in the potential guild I might be joining the other day about, you got to look at when it comes to a racial like that versus, like, they were talking about, is the dwarf crit racial better than the 5% increased damage? And I was like, well, you got to look at the length of fight for one, because, and you also got to look at the class, because certain classes have different benefits from different stats. But that 5% damage one, I'll be keeping my eye on, because I would likely, I think in my opinion, we'll likely see Blizzard make some changes there, just because it might end up proving to be a little OP on certain classes. But some of these other ones, like the Spatial Rift, I think it'll be really cool. Because the Spatial Rift actually takes some timing and some pre-setup to use effectively.
I think it has a high skill cap if you want to use it effectively, but we already have one of our really good warlocks who switched to a Ward Elf, and he has been utilizing this. like a boss, I think.
Yeah.
He really loves this new ability, and yeah, so it's not easy to use. I think you really need to time everything, but he optimized his DPS because he's a caster. He needs to stand still to cast, and when he can just Spatial Rift out of danger, then he can actually optimize his DPS a little bit. So yeah, it worked for him.
I'm all about seeing those mailboxes and those forges being dropped during the middle of the raid with the Nightboard and the Lightforge.
Yeah, maybe.
So yeah, I'll put a link in the show notes when we put this episode up too. So for those of you interested, you can go take a look at the different racials. I just have a few of the on use racials, none of the passive racials listed here. So if you guys want to take a deeper look at those, and even maybe if you want to shoot us an email or whatever after you listen to the episode and tell us your thoughts, that'd be super cool. So yeah, let's keep rolling here. We're getting a stat squish, we know that, right? And we're getting rid of legendaries. What with those two kind of combined, what are your thoughts there? Are you glad we're getting rid of legendaries? You glad we're doing a stat squish? What are your thoughts here? Let's start with Michael.
Personally, I'm glad that we're getting rid of legendaries, and not just from my personal perspective, but from just what I've seen throughout the community. A lot of people were complaining about it a lot, and as a more casual player, like, I didn't mind it so much. But now that I'm kind of like trying to gear up a little bit to help my team, I'm just like, I keep getting all these legendaries that aren't the ones that I really need. Like, I need a specific set in order to help improve. Like, if I'm just trying to learn more, I need the specific legendary to give me the stats needed to actually make my rotation viable. So I'm not a big fan of that because I'm not getting those items right now. In the beginning, I was just like, cool, orange, I got it, I'm good to go. But now I'm just like, I have absolutely nothing that I actually need. So yes, let's do away with them, and let's just even it out.
I'm so happy they're going away. I'm so happy because I have been lately, since the artifact power grind isn't so bad anymore, I actually started dabbling into Disc a little bit. And also because I feel like Holy Priest is not the optimal healer on a lot of the fights in the new raid because there's so much movement required. And Holy Priest, we need to stand still. So I've been looking into Disc a little bit just to see if I could maybe on those fights switch it up a little bit and still be, useful. So and I just don't have the legendaries though. I have crappy legendaries and it annoys me so much for Disc, and it just takes I don't know. I hate it. I'm looking forward for it to go away.
Yeah, no, I feel you. For me, I think the stat squish is good. Obviously, I don't.
But stat squish. Are we getting a stat squish this time in this
We
expansion?
are.
Did they say that? Because
yeah. Yes.
Okay. I totally missed that then.
Yeah, we're getting a stat squish. Because think about it right now, bosses have so much health that they're having to already squish the numbers down on most different renditions of UIs, especially if you're using a third-party UI.
Yeah, it makes sense that we'll get one, but I was just pretty sure that they said that they wouldn't do it in BfA, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, so think about this. When we first started this expansion, we were seeing people parsing in Emerald Nightmare, 300,000 to, maybe the weird situation where Shadow Priest was hitting 1 million on either the last boss, Xavius, or the dragons. But other than that, most normal average raiders were seeing anywhere from the 200 to the 500,000s. And now, it's not uncommon for players to be averaging 1.5 to low 2 million. So, that's effectively 4 times the amount of damage. That's a lot. Even just inside of an expansion, that's a huge gap. So, and if we take that even further with 10 more levels in BfA and gear from there, it's just going to be nuts. So I think the stat squish is good. And I would have to reflect both Marty and Michael's sentiment with legendaries. I have been very fortunate this expansion with legendaries on all of my classes. So I have no room to complain, but I do think the design of the game with legendaries in mind has just provided a very negative situation for a lot of players and the raid scene. So I'm glad they're doing away with that. And if they could do away with titanforging, or at least reflect the titanforging system they're planning on implementing with weapons, I'd be completely happy. But I'll take what I can get, and then removing legendaries I think is a good thing. So again, we've already talked about some of the class racials. Real quick, I want to talk about they're going to do some efforts to either give back class buffs to certain classes, take some of that stuff away from certain classes, and do some redesigning in an effort to make all of the classes feel more unique. Right now, we have a situation where a lot of the classes feel very similar. So we'll likely see the return of stuff like Arcane Intellect, or the Druid buff. The name is escaping me at the moment.
Mark of the Wild.
There you go, Mark of the Wild, and stuff like that. And even some of the utilities inside of the class kits, right? So group stuns, stuff like that. Or right now a lot of classes have group stuns, and so I think they're going to kind of narrow that down, and only give that to a few classes, if not just one or whatever. But what do you guys think about them making classes more unique, and how do you think that's going to change raid comps? Because Ian's comment, bring the player, not the class, was kind of a big deal in my opinion during the Q&A. What about you?
I like that. I like that he actually addressed it. He pretty much said that we're gonna try to kind of move away from that, because they do want to make it more unique, but they couldn't do it because they were trying to make it so that every class was viable in a raid. But then you don't have they never got away from it. I mean, I was seeing things where like Mythic, I forgot the boss, but you need, what's the big guy that does like the big fire wave and the ads come out, and you need like a blood DK or something like that in order to grip the things towards him in Antorus.
Gorfine's Grasp?
That might be it. I forget what it is, but
you're talking about the AoE grip?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I believe it's
you need to be able
Grasp.
to grip all of them in. Personally, I mean, I like that type of stuff. I don't want it to go back to the days where like a paladin was only clicking buffs and stuff like that, but I would like to feel like my class is there for a reason. I know my role, I can fill that, and no other class can do it because I'm the paladin and I can do it. I like that feeling of I'm unique in this large group, rather than you stun, then they stun, then they stun, and you just keep it going on the side.
I mean, I agree with you, Michael, to a certain extent, because it requires that everybody has, all the classes has something to offer then. And if Blizzard misses the mark on that, then we'll have a situation where certain classes will be benched because, well, we have no use for you because the paladin over here, he can do everything and you can do nothing, so we don't really need you. So if they can balance that, then I'm totally for it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Marty, and I think the takeaway that players should realize before you start running back and telling your respective raid groups or players inside your raid groups they need to make class changes. The thing to keep in mind here is you have to take into consideration what their comments were about certain classes, like survival hunters, for instance. They don't want to have a situation where certain classes aren't used in raids at all. They want every single class to be viable. But with that, they don't want to have a situation where maybe some of the less competitive groups, every single person wants to play a melee, or a warrior. And so, that whole mentality of, well, you should be able to bring the player, not the class. Well, okay, that's fine and dandy, but you shouldn't be able to go into a raid with all warriors and somehow manage your way through the raid. But on the flip side of that, they also want to avoid a situation where, like, let's say boomkins are so freaking strong comparatively to every other class, or rogues have so many soak abilities, that raid groups in the Mythic, the high-end scene, are only running like boomkins or rogues. They want to see a large diversity within the raid groups. Every class has something unique to offer to the table. So, again, yes, you can get away with a little bit, if you have, if ideally in a raid group you want to bring one warrior, but you have two warriors, okay, fine, no big deal. But if you have 5 players playing warriors, it might be viable to say, okay, well, a few of you might want to look at playing other classes, But I think if you can bring a diverse raid group to the raid scene, in my opinion, in BfA, that's going to be your best bet. So I think they're really trying to kind of bring that gap from either extreme end of the spectrum, kind of more towards the middle. So that's kind of my 2 cents there, but let's keep rolling here. What do you guys, Marty, let's start with you on this one. The new Heart of the Azeroth. I don't know how much you know about this new artifact necklace, but what are your thoughts here?
I don't know too much about it because I'm also, it's always with me, it's always a balance when a new expansion is announced, that I want to know enough to get me hyped, but I don't want to spoil myself too much. So I don't know too much about it. It's the new weapon, right? Where
it's a necklace.
Yeah, it's a necklace now, but it's the new artifact weapon for the expansion.
Yeah.
And you still need to power it up by gathering Azerite, but it should happen automatically or something, right? So. But I don't.
So Azerite leveling up is passive. So any normal situation where you would gain an AP token, you would gain Azerite respectively, and that Azerite would just automatically apply towards your necklace. So you don't actually have to do any sort of like going into your bags and clicking, or getting the weak aura to click and find all of them in your bags. It's just going to apply passively, and from there. And same type of system, with each X amount of Azerite gained, you'll unlock the next tier in your necklace. But again, it's going to happen passively, and there will be no titanforging on that piece.
Yeah, so it has like a small talent tree, right? So you can pick and choose between abilities, just like today's weapon, just necklace instead.
Yep. And the other kind of caveat with that is, as you unlock the different tiers of your necklace, that's also going to unlock the different tiers that you have access to in your Azerite armor, which is head, shoulders, and chest. And so let's kind of segue in there, because I think it might be prudent to talk about both of these in conjunction with one another. Mm-hmm. We're no longer having tier pieces. It's just Azerite armor. It's just 3 different pieces that can't Titanforge, and they have kind of their own trait rings, kind of like the Netherlight Crucible, but there's not that randomness that you would see with a relic from the Crucible. It's every piece of gear has a predetermined number of traits, and whether you have an 855 version or an 890 version, those traits are always going to be the same. So with that being said, Marty, I know you're kind of keeping yourself a little bit in the dark here with these things, but I guess just at face value, or what do you think about getting rid of tier bonuses and going to this type of system?
Yeah, I remember seeing probably at BlizzCon that they talked about it, and I was like, I think one of the things that they mentioned was that they had more freedom to just make awesome sets, like good looking sets, and because the tier set bonuses were sort of just built in, right? So it kind of, and because once you got those tier set items, then you would never switch them doing that progress run anyway. So I sort of think it's a good change, to be honest, because it gives you, I think the system will give you more possibilities in the end.
Yeah. Now, Michael, I know you're fairly new to the raid scene, especially when looking at raiding over the lifespan of WoW. So you having a predetermined kind of viewpoint of tier and set bonuses like that. What are your kind of thoughts here?
First of all, I love the idea of tier set bonuses. Like, even now I go back to like the old content to get those sets, but it's mainly for the cosmetics of it. Mm-hmm. I noticed during this expansion, while I was keeping up on news and things, that we were having some issues where a previous tier set bonus was better than a current mm-hmm. one. And I felt like that is something that you should never want to run into as a game developer, because then why would that person just keep trying to move forward with progression? If like, why am I going to grind out this raid if the previous one is already better? So I feel like that is kind of like a trap that you can run into with those. As long as they kind of keep it where, like Marty said, that they want to create cooler looking things, I don't mind it as much, as long as the stats just don't get too crazy again.
And yeah. I also think that issue we had in this expansion with some tiers being as good or better also stems from the whole titanforging thing as well, right? Because if you could titanforge those tier pieces and get like amazing high item level version of those, then yeah, then why would you change to something worse, right?
Yep. So kind of just to kind of expand upon what these guys have been talking about and just let you know is what we know currently how this is going to work. So Titan forging on weapons, right? So we're doing away with our artifact weapons. We don't know how that's going to happen yet, but we do know in BfA artifact weapons will no longer be a thing. So we're all going to go back to having to kill bosses for weapons. The Titan forging and war forging on weapons is going to be much smaller than on non-Azerite pieces. So war forging on weapons may stay within 5 to 10 item levels and not be able to go past that. So you won't see people in LFR getting 80 item level warforged weapons. You know what I mean? Because essentially what can happen is certain classes, especially like physical DPS classes, benefit that much more from weapons than say like certain caster classes. So if you have a person running around in all greens and they get that 80 item level warforge on their weapon, next thing you know, they're essentially doing close to, if not at on par DPS to somebody who might be in a mythic group, so they're going to try and avoid that situation by limiting the amount of warforging ability that weapons are going to have. The Azerite pieces again, so the chest, the shoulders, and the helm will not be able to warforge or titan forge. So if you want a higher item level piece in your shoulder slot, you're going to have to do higher difficulty things, be it Mythic Plus at a higher level or, the next tier difficulty of rating. And then like we already see, non-Azerite pieces that are not weapons will still retain the amount of Titan forging levels that we currently see. However, what they are going to do, and Ian talked about this in QA, is they're going to try and tone down the amount of Titan Forges and Warforges players are going to see. So effectively reducing that % chance that you will see a Titan Forge or a Warforge, because it felt almost too common to where players were starting to get irritated when things would not Titan Forge or Warforge. So
Ryan, if you don't mind, I just want to add to that.
Go ahead.
I'm a casual player, and there were times where I turned in something and I was getting my 910 gear for it, and then it Titan forged and I got 950. It's a great feeling when that happens, but I am a huge fan of reining that in because I want it to be more normalized. It feels up to me. I wouldn't want any of that going on. I would rather just like a base number and just know that that's what I'm going to get. I don't like the feeling of people thinking that I'm better than what I really am based off of the number of the gear that I have on there.
Yeah.
So as a newer player, like I'm one of those weird ones that I'm just like, I want my number to reflect my ability for better or worse. So I'm a huge fan of reining it in. If I was to go all the way, I would just say get rid of it all together. But
sure. Well, and I think what this is going to do is this is going to do one of two things, or two things effectively. It's going to reduce that situation where people are expecting Warforges and Titan Forges, especially in the lower difficulties. And then at the same time, on the flip side of that, it's going to reduce the frustration from Mythic Raiders or Heroic Raiders feeling like normal and LFR Raiders are getting rewarded too much for not being in the higher difficulties. People want to feel like if I'm going to go into Heroic or Mythic, I'm going to be rewarded more for my efforts than I would be, say, if I were in LFR or normal. Because a lot of guilds also right now, when they get into the higher difficulties of rating, don't need gear because of all the Titan forging and war forging that they're seeing in the lower difficulties.
Yeah, I mean that's the issue I have, that I actually have certain pieces in my current set, and mind you, I've mainly been doing heroic. I have a few pieces that I don't need anything. I don't need those pieces from Mythic anymore because they have Titan Forge so high. So the only way that if I get the same item on Mythic, it has to Titan Forge even higher as well for me to actually want to consider this item. And I think that's an issue because if I can clear lower content and have better gear than I can on Mythic, then why would I then go and do Mythic afterwards?
Yep. I'm in the exact same boat with my elemental shaman, so I feel you there. And then also, this was a kind of a point of confusion I had with the Azerite armor. So they are doing away with the traditional tier sets and the set bonuses that we're going to see. But like Michael said, the aesthetic part of things is going to remain the same. So each tier of raiding, the gear that comes out of that raid or the gear that comes out of certain dungeons is going to have a theme for that tier, for that content. So if you want to get these cool looking sets that all kind of go together, you can still have that as long as you have all the gear pieces out of a certain raid or a dungeon. Now, as for the bonuses, that's going away in the traditional sense, but we are still going to have access to additional traits or talents via the Azerite armor that we're going to that we currently see out of like the weapon. But like I said earlier, so like whether you have an 850 or an 855 version of that specific piece, so like let's say you have blood-soaked pauldrons off a certain boss. Well, the traits that you have access to at the lowest item level are going to be the exact same traits you have access to at the highest item level version of that specific piece. However, if you get another shoulder, so a different name, different shoulder out of the same content, so just a different boss down the road, that shoulder will have different traits, which is going to allow a situation to where like maybe this specific piece has more single target suited traits. Well, you can change out the other piece for more AoE type situations. So it's like it's going to give more freedom to change these up without being locked into only using your tier shoulders. And I think them also removing legendaries is going to free that up as well, because a lot of classes have been locked into certain tier pieces because they couldn't swap out their gloves because they had to keep their legendary gloves on.
And I mean, it doesn't change too much from today either, because today people are still moving items around and talents and stuff just to suit different situations. If you're a single target, then you might go for these items, and if you know you're going to do AoE, then you might switch a few things around, right? That's how it works today as well. Yep. So it's not really a big difference as I see it, at least.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think this is just a kind of a more refined rendition of what we currently see. So I initially, when they first announced they're getting rid of tier set bonuses, I was so angry. I hated that, and that's me coming from, having been raiding since vanilla, but the more I look into this and read up on it, I'm more okay with it, and kind of excited to see something different.
Yeah.
Even though, like you said, it's effectively really similar to what we already have in game. But I don't want to spend too much time on this.
I just want to quickly finish off saying that I had an old CEO once who always said new is good, because change is good. So I'm looking forward to see this. These changes, and I mean, sometimes it's a little bit hard to see if it's actually a good change or a bad change, and I think this one is something we need to see how it works and see how it feels in the next expansion before we can have like a proper opinion about it.
Sure.
But new is good.
Yep. So we're going to round up here. That's pretty much all I have for BfA changes in terms of how that might affect the raid scene. And my closing thoughts before we jump into the last 15 minutes of the show here today is, I think, in my opinion, and I would definitely encourage any of you listening to kind of take a look at the links I'll provide. I'll provide links to some of these different, Azerite armor, the artifact neck, which is called the Heart of Azeroth, and some other things. And you guys can tell us your opinions. If you don't agree with us, whatever, email in the show, let us know. I'd be curious to see some feedback. I love these types of discussions, but I think what we are going to see is a need for groups, raid guilds, because right now, if you're going to join a raid guild, there isn't really a need for a lot of groups to take people of lower item level, because you have so much access with titanforging, warforging, and different respective outlets to obtain gear that if your group wants 960 item level people, well, people should be able to go get that without you having to help them. And so you don't see a lot of higher end groups doing these where they're running lower difficulty stuff regularly to gear people up, unless it's just absolutely necessary. Like in Marty's situation, they lost 5 people. There's no, you can't really do that, But even with replacing 1 or 2 people in BfA with titanforging and warforging, as we currently know, being reduced in certain slots, having even a narrower gap of that or not at all, I think you'll see more groups running lower difficulty things regularly to help gear people up who may be joining the raid team, coming back to the game, whatever. But yeah, so again, closing thoughts here, guys. Let me know your thoughts here. Check out the links I'll provide in the show notes, and we'll be excited to hear what you guys have to say. So moving on to the last 15 minutes here. I know I'm speaking fast, but Marty's got to get out here at a certain point and kind of wrap this up.
I'm going to raid, funny enough.
On an alt,
On
right?
an alt, yeah.
Wow. It's so weird. I thought you were just a holy priest all the time. I thought Marty had 12 characters and every single one of them was a priest.
No, I had different characters, but funny enough, I am actually going to heal. So I'm not changing that. I'm just changing the character, the way I heal, but I'm still going to heal.
On which character?
My doo-doo.
Your druid?
Yes.
All right. That's definitely a different style of healing.
It definitely is, and I think that's the fun of it, to try something else.
Well, they're probably more in line with like a disc priest, yeah? Kind of pre-healing, getting ready, set up?
Yeah. And I actually did looking for raid today on the same boss that we did Mythic, the High Command. The Portal Keeper. Sorry, the Portal Keeper. And because I started out as disc on Portal Keeper, I already had that mentality when I went in with my druid and did it on native file that, this is where I need to pre-hot everything and things like that. So at least something stuck in my brain.
Yeah. Cool. Well, you'll have to let me know how that goes, because it's definitely going to be a change up for you.
Maybe we can talk about it on the next show.
Yeah, absolutely. So Michael, kind of one of the reasons I invited you here today is I definitely wanted to bring you in because you, like I've mentioned many times now on this episode, come from a different perspective from the raiding scene. And so I'd like to quick run through the different bosses in Antorus, because this really is kind of your first time jumping into raiding, no?
Outside of LFR, yes. I mean, there was that one time where you took me with your guild through Tuma Sargeras, but I was still a tank at that point, and you guys were just downing everything super quickly anyway, so I didn't really know many mechanics. So this is the first time that I'm actually getting into normal raiding and experiencing a boss lasting for more than 5 seconds.
Very cool. Well, let's we'll take just a few minutes on each of the bosses and we'll run through them real quick. Let's just jump into it. Garathi, Michael, what do you think about this fight? I mean, it's pretty easy, straightforward, tank and spank. I know you've only seen it on normal and heroic, but what are your thoughts there?
I like it. It's a great introduction. The boss itself looks cool. It has a few mechanics. None are too difficult to deal with. So I like that it kind of eases you into. I always felt like if you're going into a raid, the first boss should kind of be just one to kind of get you used to everything and get you in there, get ready, get the hands warmed up and ready to go. And I feel like this definitely does that.
Yeah. Now, Marty, you fielded on Mythic. And you like you said, you're coming from a class that comparatively to the other classes that are in the same type of role are very immobile and at a disadvantage in this current tier of rating. What do you think about this fight?
I don't think this fight is too bad, actually, because there is a lot of just standing still and staying stacked up, which is what Holy Priests like. So Garathi, it gets a thumbs up here from here. It's not bad for a Holy Priest.
Sure. If you haven't picked up on already, I'm currently maining an elemental shaman. And this fight for me is fun now that I have the best in slots. But what I can't seem to figure out is, due to one of the mechanics, the entire raid is kind of tasked with running away from the boss and then running back to the boss and running great lengths, very, very far away, to where most classes, even with blinks or leaps or whatever, can't get back to the boss instantaneously, outside of maybe a monk whose roll glitches and can roll all the way up to the boss. But certain melee classes are still topping the charts, and we do this 3 times throughout the fight. So with range being able to take a few steps forward and start then on their DPS again, it baffles me that some of these melee classes can still top the charts. But I too like this fight. It's very straightforward. If you guys are new into the raid scene or first jumping into Antorus now, you can completely avoid going and looking up any guides or how-to videos. Just listen to our intro over and over again. Michael goes through every single mechanic and tells you what to do. And I think most of the time, based on the inflection of his voice, all of them are like in the form of a question, so some sort of, but just ignore that part and just listen to Michael. He'll tell you what to do. Moving on here, Hounds. This is an interesting fight. It's a cleave fight for a few classes, but it's not your traditional cleave fight. Most groups, unless you're just really, really geared, are separating the bosses. And Michael, you're from a melee perspective, so you really can't utilize or tap into this cleave situation here unless your group tanks them together. How do you like Hounds?
I like the fight. There's not a whole lot that you have to worry about. Sometimes you do get that where you have both the red bursting damage plus the purple spiral coming all around at once.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, my guild separates them. So my job, just whack the purple dog. Not that hard to figure out. If a purple swirly starts coming towards you, you just I charge out of it and I get back to smacking the dog around. There's not a whole lot other than that. There is the parts where you have to stack up, so that all the damage doesn't go straight to just one person and wipe the raid or type deal. Not that difficult. It only really gets difficult if two things happen at once, or the tanks don't really know what's going on, and then all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. But other than that, when I first started it, I thought it wasn't as straightforward as it actually is. But once I've settled into it, I'm like, this fight is not that bad.
Yeah, I feel like it's a lot of fights. When you first step in there, it's like, I don't know what's going on. And then after you do it a few times, it's like, okay, this is easy. Mm-hmm. But Marty, what do you think here?
Normal on Heroic, it's not too bad for Holy Priest. But on Mythic, where you need to, I can't remember, it's the Shadow one, where it always is in his butt, and you need to move from left to right, from left to right. As a Holy Priest, I can just give up healing. I just have to run and survive that phase and hope that the other healers got it.
You're talking about when the purple radiance comes out from each player and you have to group up and you drop fire and you move out of it?
Yeah, exactly.
That's on the fire dog, the red dog. Yeah, that part's really irritating. And I would have to reflect Marty's sentiment. I've done this fight both as elemental and enhance. And I got to say that this fight is really enjoyable as a melee because you can continue to DPS all the while kind of focus on enjoying, handling all the different mechanics. Whereas when I'm on my shaman, unless I have procs going, which is quite often with my gear, it's sometimes I have to quit DPSing on the move and it sucks. But it's like Michael said, once you've done it a few times, it becomes pretty straightforward. And outside of some people kind of going off in a la la land and causing a wipe, it's a pretty straightforward, easy fight, even on Mythic. But it's fun. I enjoy that one. So since Marty's already down high command, and he hasn't done any of the other two of the next three bosses, we'll kind of start there. But again, sticking with our normal rotation here of speakers, Michael, what do you think about high command? Now, this is the one with the pods.
As long as you have people that understand what their role is with the pods, this fight is a lot of fun. As a rep pally, I love it because I can just keep whacking the boss while AoEing the ads that come out. So, and for me, my natural rotation is the AoE. I like doing Mythic Plus. So I love it when ads come in and I get to still hit the boss while focusing on the ads at the same time. And the mines that pop up, I haven't found them to be too distracting, too troubling. I haven't really stepped on many. So I like it. I think it's one of the first fights in the raid that actually make you do multiple different things. You have people going into pods, you have people focusing ads, people focusing boss, and I like that type of stuff. It's just enough before it starts getting too crazy.
Cool. Marty, what are your thoughts here now that you've recently killed this boss on Mythic?
Well, it's pretty good fun. I'm usually stuck on inside the pods in the first phase anyway, so bye healing meters. But I don't know, it's just somebody has to do it. It's fine. As a Holy Priest, I'm like, people are a little bit too spread out for me to be as effective as I could be. But it's a decent fight for a Holy Priest, and I enjoyed it. It's pretty good fun, actually.
I would imagine you probably catch up on the meters pretty quickly in pod 2, don't you?
Not necessarily. But yeah, I mean, sure, we are stacking up. But I mean, all the other classes like people being every healing class like people to be stacked up. So
yeah, I know. Our group tends to, or the group that I was in, tended to, especially going into pod 2 and 3, tended to stack up a bit more. So our Holy Priest, she would just blow out the meters. But Yeah. A good group, like Marty was saying, especially in pod 2, will spread out and then they will collapse when the bubble goes up. And so there's times where people should be spreading out enough that Holy Priest are at a slight disadvantage and have to retain 2 spot healing with single target. But I'm currently an elemental shaman. So these next 3 bosses for me are kind of like, barring the exception of a really good boomkin or a really good fire mage and a really good affliction lock, you might as well not even be on in existence in my group, because elemental shamans just destroy the burst AoE at the moment. So yeah, this fight, I too do the pods in pod 3 because that's pretty much a single target phase of the fight, and I'm spec AoE, so it's just more prudent for me to jump in the pod. But phase 1 and then really in phase 2, it's just a lot of fun seeing thousands of numbers ticking off on my screen as my earthquakes and chain lightnings, and all of a sudden I turn into a Sith Lord. So it's a fun fight. I like it, and we'll reserve the deeper dives of these for the respective role episodes that we're going to start in on here soon. But moving on, ENR. Now I think at this point we're going to have to talk more to the heroic across the board, since Marty hasn't done this one on Mythic yet. But what do you guys think of this tower defense?
I don't like it.
End of discussion.
I don't like it, not because anything is particularly difficult, but simply because mobility issues as a ret paladin. Getting to where I need to go, or if I suddenly miss something or somebody calls out the wrong area, it's a long run back to wherever I'm supposed to go. I just find it tedious for the most part. It's not that interesting to me. I like that they tried something different, and I'm all for that, but it's not my favorite fight.
I'm all in Michael. He said everything that I wanted to say. It's boring.
Yeah. I will tell you guys this much. I have done this fight on Mythic. I've done it on all the difficulties. A good raid leader will make or break this fight. It is literally what I just said. It is a tower defense. The name of the game is micromanagement. If people are calling out the wrong places to go, I would advise them to go look up at a guide, because in every single difficulty, where mobs spawn when is predetermined. So once you've kind of set up your groups, especially on Mythic is a little bit more fun. You kind of don't have the situation that Michael's talking about where the mobs die so fast that it's, if you lacking in mobility, that sometimes you're just at an extreme disadvantage and the fight is boring and pointless. But on Mythic, it's definitely more fun, and wipes can happen because you can get behind and people aren't where they should be and stuff like that. And there's an additional phase where you go in and click some things and kill a different mob. But I enjoyed this fight the first time, and the second time I did it. But after that, it's just like, I am over this. It's just a waste of 10 minutes. If you just had all the mobs spawn at once and let us kill them, we'd be done here in 2 minutes. But yeah, so we'll move on from there. Portal Keeper is the next in line here. Again, I like this fight. It favors burst AoE. I can put out the burst AoE. My cooldowns line up with every other spawning of the imps on the outside, so I don't have to go inside. But Michael, do you like this fight?
I love this fight personally. This is one of the first fights that I've actually gotten to say that I've died in plenty of fun different ways. I love the idea of having to go into each different portal at those 30% perspectives and dealing with something different. I'm still trying to figure out that purple one, not gonna lie. When somebody tells me to go grab the flame, I'm like, where's the flame? Where do I bring it? I'm still trying to learn it. And there was one time where we all left a portal, and that big ability that just smashes through the entire screen was just on the area that you're coming in through the portal. So I land and poof, I'm dead. But otherwise, I like it, and I never want to be part of the group that stays down. I would much rather go through every portal, because I would think it's too boring if I'm just staying down, because the boss herself is not that difficult.
I can confirm it's boring to stay down.
Yeah, I love going through the portals. It's a lot of fun to me, and aesthetically, it's one of my favorite ones of the entire raid.
I have no.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I have no clue what's going on inside those portals.
Yeah, you guys are crazy, man. If you're a Sith Lord, it's really fun staying down. But yeah, no, I'm looking at the clock here. We're rounding up on time. It's about time for Marty to go here in the next few minutes. So we'll keep moving here. And we'll do this pretty quickly here. So if you guys want deeper dives, like I said, I've already mentioned this once, come back for the roll episodes and we'll definitely take deeper dives into these different fights from different perspectives. But Kenny G and Verum, they're our next two in line. Kenny G is Kingaroth, for those of you that don't know that moniker. But yep, Kenny G and Verum, they're our next two single target fights in line here. I like them both. Kenny G for me with the target switching and being able to keep my flame shocks up on multiple targets. I have a lot of procs going off a lot of times, and if things line up, I can do some really good damage. It's fun, and I like those. I like the fluid movement fights where you can transition smoothly from one target to the next, and you don't really have to quit DPSing. So to me, I like both of these fights. Verum is pretty much straightforward tank and spake.
I like Verum.
Michael,
Holy priest like Verum. We can stand still and heal. It's amazing.
Yeah. Just make sure you run your debuffs out once you're on heroic and higher level difficulties. 10 yards, people. 9 yards is too close. But yeah, Mike, I mean, do you like both these fights, Michael? Do you have any thoughts here real quickly?
Kingaroth, stressful but fun. Verum Antorus, boring.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you there. Now moving on, Coven is the next fight in line before we get to the last two bosses.
I know I'm contradicting myself now because it does have some movement and stuff, but it's actually a fun fight. I love fights where a lot of things is going on because you actually need to pay attention, and this is definitely one of them. I like it. Same.
Coven, like it. A lot of difficulty there for me learning, and I love learning it in the process and still learning it. It's a lot of fun.
I too am going to contradict myself here. I normally really, really love fights that just have vomit coming your way with 25 different things going on at once. To give an example, Lady Vash, that fight is probably one of my favorite fights in the entire game. Lady Vash was during Burning Crusade. In SSC, which is Serpent Commander, but I hate Coven, and I am a ranged character. I hate Coven. That fight just sucks. I hate it, and I will go deeper into that in next episode. But yeah, I'm not a fan of Coven. Anyways, Agrimar, I like this fight. I think that it involves a lot of different mechanics going on. It involves some CC. They happen in such a linear fashion, but they require different people doing different things the entire time throughout the fight. That to me is fun. You get to utilize your entire raid kit for the most part, especially at the higher level difficulties.
It's one of those fights that I'm a little bit on the fence about because I could potentially be the one wiping people because I'm running to the wrong place with the debuff or bomb or whatever it is. It has happened because I wasn't there when we actually learned the fight, so I had to learn on the fly. And so boom.
Now, what about you, Michael? Have you cleared on Heroic yet, or are you guys still progressing?
Heroic, we're still progressing there. We're not passing. We're about 8 of 11 on Heroic.
But you've done it on normal?
Oh yeah, we've cleared it on normal.
Okay, what do you think about Agrimar?
It's fun. At least on normal, there's not too much that I really focus on. I hit things with a stick. So
cool. Let's move on to the last boss here. We'll quick wrap this up so Marty can get out of here. Argus, Michael, roundtable real quick. What are your thoughts here?
I mean, obviously being the raider that I am, Argus is super easy and it's amazing. And no, it's a shit show. Okay? No, I'm constantly trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Hit the orb, but there's a million swirlies in the way. I'm a healer's worst nightmare on this fight. And I apologize to all of them. Aesthetically, it's beautiful. I love it. There's a lot going on and I like it. I just have a lot to learn on it still. So I'm still working my way through it, trying to get comfortable. Right now, it's still a shit show.
On next week's episode, Michael will tell you how to do Argus in the intro.
Don't die.
The intro will be half the show then.
Actually, you can die at some point.
You have to die at some point.
Yeah. No choice.
Marty, you like this fight?
Yeah, I do like it. I also find it funny that it's another fight, the second one, right, where the end boss actually kills the whole raid.
Yeah. And then you get rezzed and you kill the boss. I like this fight. There's different phases that are definitely unique from one another. That requires different things going on. There's a little bit of taking things out. There's a little bit of grouping up. there's a little bit of everything going on. And there's even some mechanics for people being dead that they can take care of. So for those of you who haven't killed it yet, I will reserve that for you to go find out. But yeah, I like this fight. I don't like it a whole lot. It's one of those things where I could take it or leave it type thing. So for me, it's kind of fun going in there and trying to parse well.
Yeah, I like it because of the abilities and how the fight is handled. I don't really like it from a lore perspective because where is that big baddie? Where is he? The real one?
I agree.
He's humping the planet.
Yeah. He's busy getting ready to set us up for BfA.
Yeah.
But we're kind of at time here, guys, and I apologize for rushing us out of here. But Marty has to go, and we're about an hour in as it is. Real quick roundtable, Marty, Michael, tell the guys where they can find you outside of this episode.
Oh, okay. You can find me over on Twitter. I'm AcidTears111, or you can find me over at the Blue Recluse. I'm a co-host with Marty, and he'll definitely tell you where to get all that sweet information. Other than that, I'm nowhere. Don't pay attention to me.
He's on the intro too.
Yeah, I'm there. You can catch me every week here. So I'm here with you.
And you can find me at Unamithil. That's my priest name, and you can probably not spell that, so it will be in the show notes somewhere in the internet. And besides that, you can find me at the bluerecluse.eu, where I am co-hosting together with Michael and a guy named Tom, but don't pay attention to it.
He just plays card games.
Yeah.
Yep. So like they said, guys, if you want to find Marty and Michael, you can find them over with Tom at the Blue Recluse. It's an all Blizzard game podcast. It's a bit more on the comedic side. It's an absolute ball to listen to. I myself do a podcast with a good friend, Dusty, where we as well cover all Blizzard games. And I say that there's room for both of us on the internet. They have more of a comedic value, whereas Dusty and I tend to do a little bit deeper dive discussion type.
And serious.
We are boring and monotone. Bueller. These guys are great fun. It's why I have them on the show. It's why Marty's my co-host. We do a lot of things with them. So if you want to do that, go check both of us out on Blue Recluse or the Blizzard Umbrella or both. But as for myself, guys, every week you can find me Tuesday, Thursday on my stream at 7 Central. But that is now moving to 7:30 p.m. Central Time as I trial with this new guild, which I will be streaming. So if you're interested to see what a Mythic guild trial looks like, come over, say hi, join me on my stream this Tuesday and Thursday. For those, you can find me both on Twitter and Twitch at McIrish Gaming or over at the Blizzard Umbrella. You can find us here on the show at our email, theraidersconfessional@gmail.com. There's no apostrophe on the S, or you can find us on our Twitter, which is at _TRC podcast. This show is brought to you and hosted by Dragon Powered Studios, and our intro and outro have been brought to you by Thankful Cow Solutions. They have done great, fantastic work, and I cannot get over it. But that being said, that's going to wrap it up here for this week. See ya.
Sorry, I died. Was I supposed to stand in the green puddles or the orange ones?
Hey, get together over there, bud.